Risen is an open-world RPG developed by Piranha Bytes that came out in October of 2009. I just finished playing it in 2026, and I'm here to tell you whether or not it's worth your time today. Short answer is yes, this is an awesome RPG with a high-quality character progression and exploration in the island. I also enjoyed the combat. It kind of goes hand in hand with the character progression where you start off super weak, but then by the end of the game, your character is strong. But you also, as the player, need to figure out the timing of your sword swings and parries if you want to be effective at combat. And I like the merging of the in-game character skill and out-game player skill, both mattering in RPGs. With the short answer out of the way, let's dive a little bit deeper into what makes Risen so great. Starting off with the story. This is actually the opposite. The story is just kind of whatever. It's there, it gets you through the game. No one's shitting themselves over the story in Risen.
The Geiger is dead. What? Dead. Deceased. It is a dead Geiger.
You wash up on an island like many other RPGs with nothing to your name, no armor, no weapons, and you have no idea where you are or how you got there. This is an okay setup for RPGs, but it's pretty generic. Basically, the main story is there's something that's going to destroy the island you're on and the rest of the world unless you are able to defeat the big bad guy. I know it gets deeper than that, but when I'm playing these games, I'm kind of just playing it for the exploration and the combat, so that's all. The story is whatever, and that's okay with me. That's not why I played the game. Moving on to character progression. Now, this is one of the main things that I really enjoy about this game. You start off super weak, as I said, on the beach with no armor, no weapon. You find a stick. That's your main weapon for a little bit. You can find a sword in the trees on the beach somewhere pretty close, and then you can upgrade from the stick to the sword pretty quickly. And even that is just like a huge jump. You're like, wow, this matters a lot. The game has 3 attributes. It's strength, dexterity, and wisdom. I just went all in on strength because I wanted to use the swords, and I don't really care for magic in RPGs at all. And I think dexterity is for losers. No disrespect. The game's got a bunch of different weapons, both ranged, melee, and magical spells. Like I said, I just focused on sword and shield, and then I had a crossbow to pull enemies from range to get combat started. You start off as a naked nobody, and you end the game as just an absolute unit of a man. Heavy plate armor, you're wielding a 2-handed sword in one hand and a giant shield. It's pretty awesome. There are also a bunch of different skills in the game. I only focused on lockpicking and alchemy. Lockpicking, obviously, you can open up chests and doors, I think. In alchemy, you can make healing potions, as well as potions that increase your strength, dexterity, and give you experience. I ended up with nearly maxed out strength and maxed out wisdom, which was an accident while playing. With all that being said, character progression takes a long time, but is extremely rewarding. It seems like every level up and attribute increase matters a lot, especially because you start off so weak. Moving on to combat, this is probably one of my favorite parts about the game. You really need to learn the timings of your sword swings and your parries, kind of in a Dark Souls-esque fashion. At the beginning, combat can be kind of frustrating and seem kind of RNG, but you need to take the time to swing your weapon around when there aren't any enemies, just so you can figure out how to get your attacks to hit really quickly. If you're spamming your click button, you're going to attack very slowly in between attacks, and that's when you're going to get hit back. But if you click, 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 very intentionally, you can get these super fast combos out and hit enemies before they even have time to react. You can hold block to block enemies' attacks, but I find that waiting for the time when they swing at you, tapping block to hit your parry, and then them getting staggered is way more effective. There's a lot of different enemy types, and they all have different attack patterns, so every fight that you get in throughout the game feels fresh and interesting, and you have to change up your tactics to get through it. This keeps you on your toes and kind of changes things up from games like Fable where you kind of just spam your attack no matter what the enemy is. This one you actually have to pay attention to who you're fighting, watch their attacks, try to get that block off in time, or what I found was effective is a backwards dash to heavy attack. Once you unlock this heavy attack with your strength, the game kind of loses a lot of the tactics that it would require when you were a lower level. I found by the end of the game I was just kind of spamming this backdash heavy attack because it did a lot of damage, super effective, and I could just dodge pretty much everything that the enemies were throwing at me. But you learn all of these tactics throughout the game, and they're all super useful, situational, fun to use. But the main problem is when you get to the final boss, you don't really have to use any of it. The final boss was kind of a letdown in terms of like combat. It turns into kind of a jumping puzzle rather than the actual like combat challenge. But I guess the dude that you had to fight before you got to that final boss is the actual like combat damage test, and that was fine with me. All in all, combat is pretty dope, and I enjoyed it a lot in Risen. Finally, exploration is king in this game. You start off on the beach on the island, having no idea where you are, no real map, and you just kind of follow the path, meet some people, and they tell you where you can go or where you should go. You don't know who you're supposed to listen to or what squad you're supposed to team up with, and you're kind of just, as you would in real life, figuring things out as you go. If you intend on playing Risen, I would suggest not looking up any tutorials or whatever and just try to figure it out on your own. Playing these old games as they were intended to be played is a lot more fun than just cheating yourself out of the experience. You start off with no map, and as the game progresses, you find people that give you bits and pieces of maps, so your map kind of starts off weak, and then it upgrades, and then you end up with the full island map. You also find little individual maps of certain areas when you're in them, or if someone gives them to you before you get the quest to go to that place. I like this way of handling maps where it doesn't spoil the whole game for you. I'll compare this game to Fable again, where you could play Fable entirely based on looking at your mini-map. Where Risen, you don't have a mini-map, you gotta look at and actually deal with the environment in front of you. This game, much like other Piranha Bytes games, have 3 factions that you can join, and you kind of naturally just stumble into these factions while you're exploring the world. I joined up with the Bandits because I wanted to be a sword and shield player, but the other factions are focused on magic or using staffs and stuff like that. Similar to Dark Souls, you have to clear the paths of enemies to get to anywhere important. So you'll be walking down a dirt path trying to follow your quest. You'll see wolves off to the side, you can go and battle them. You can see these moths off to the side that'll all attack you in a group. You're basically slowly uncovering areas of the map that you can go to by just killing everything that's living in that area. The game is basically you landing on an island and killing every living thing that exists on the island besides the people, for the most part. And I think that's great. As you progress through the story, there are multiple chapters, and when you get to the next chapter, enemies in areas that you were at respawn, and some of them will get stronger. So when you're retracing your steps through areas that you've already cleared or explored, it won't be an empty wasteland. There'll be new enemies for you to encounter. This keeps this really awesome island that they built relevant throughout the entire game. And towards the end of the game, when you've already explored the whole island, you unlock these teleport stones, so you can jump around the island a lot faster. This is extremely useful and kind of speeds up the end of the game where it doesn't feel like a slog. Exploring the world kind of feels like a puzzle in itself. You're unlocking new paths and ways to get to places that you've been or that you need to go, and I think that's super rewarding. There's a bunch of underground temples or dungeons that you need to go through too, and they all kind of have their own little puzzles to them as well. Exploring the dungeons and getting through all the puzzles is pretty rewarding as well, and I enjoy killing all the skeletons that are underground, and obviously getting all the loot that exists as well. A bunch of different swords, staffs, scrolls, food, potions, shields. As you upgrade your swordsmanship skill, you're able to use stronger weapons. So at some point you can unlock bastard swords, so you can use two-handed weapons. And as you move down the strength path, you're able to hold two-handed weapons in one hand. And this is where you start noticing big damage differences. There's also a bunch of different rings. I ended up finding 2 swordsmanship rings, putting them both on so that I could get to max swordsmanship without having to buy all of the upgrades. All of these items lead to a lot of cool different builds that you could get going in Risen. In the end, it took me about 26 hours to complete all of what Risen has to offer, and I think almost all of that was a really good time. There is a spot where you get stuck in a town for a little too long, and that was kind of boring because there wasn't a lot of combat. I think this is a classic problem. For some reason in RPGs, they like to stick you in a town when you've been exploring the wilds for a very long time, and it always pisses me off. One game that does this is Baldur's Gate 3. I think when you get stuck in the city, it's like the worst version of the game, and you get stuck in there for a super long time. Risen does the same thing, but it's not as long. And there's cool puzzles and people to meet in this smaller amount of time, so I think it's not as bad. The character progression, the exploration, and the combat is what make Risen great. I recommend playing Risen. Go check it out if you're an RPG fan who enjoys challenging combat and rewarding character progression and exploration. Thanks for listening to me talk about this old game. I had a great time playing it, and I had a great time talking about it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
I think we need to head further north. I've got a bad feeling about the path to the east for some reason.
Why? What's wrong with it?
Most of the gnomes' tracks lead to the north. It's strange, but from what I see here, it could well be that the gnomes are in cahoots with the Geiger.
The gnomes are in cahoots with a monster.
Maybe it's just a coincidence. We'll find out soon enough. Keep going.
Killing's too good for them.